Edem Kodjo is in studio to run us through all the statistics, the numbers, which of course Edem has is 40, and so he's going to be taking us through that and comparing really previous years, 2020, 2016, and what we are seeing in 2024 as the numbers and the results are trickling in. Edem?
Yeah, so Nazli, back here because we have to make sure we give you every detail to the last number. So once again, this is our election portal, and so far, from what we have gathered from our independent analysis, we have so far tallied a total of 4.176 million valid votes cast so far. And John Dramani Mahama has gathered 2.48, representing 59.5% of the certified results we have received here at the EIB network, while Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia trails behind with 38.72%. So this is an overview. We can also go down and look at what we have for the parliamentary thus far. So far, we have about 90 confirmed seats that we have, and we are still picking more up. As you can see over here, the NDC has a very big ring, and when I touch this, it tells you the NDC currently has 54 out of the 90 certified parliamentary seats that we have so far. When you move to the blue, that is 28 NPP seats, and then there's a black line in there. When we click it, it tells you there are 2 independent seats that have been given out so far. Now, the regional map is also taking shape, and this is where we would also want to rely and look at historical data based on what is being sent to the EC. As you know, the Electoral Commission, that is the headquarters, is taking collated results from the constituencies that are sent to the regional levels and are brought to them. So the EC is expecting 16 regional collated sheets. I know some of the results have come so far, and I don't know whether, Ibrahim, you want to help us with some of the data that has come for the certified regions. And then we look at the historical performance of that particular region. So I don't know which one we wanted to start from. Okay.
We can do Eastern region.
Okay.
So 30 out of 33 constituencies, as you are aware, and John Dramani Mahama of the NDC polled 453,234. And that represents 47.12%.
Okay.
Yes.
Ibrahim Alasan, hold on for me. So we'd want to write a few things here so that we keep our viewers in track.
Yeah.
So, okay. So we are doing the Eastern region.
We're doing the Eastern region. So then let's go with Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, yes.
So
first.
Eastern first. Okay. So,
yes.
So DMB. Yeah?
Yes, so DMB, that will be 493,000.
493,000. Yes.
234.
234. Yes. Representing how many percent?
That's 51.28%.
51.28%. 8. Okay.
And then JDM.
And then JDM.
Yes, so JDM, okay, so JDM.
You have to go down your sheet to...
Yes, JDM, no, I have it. That's okay. 453,000.
453,000.
234 votes.
234 votes.
That's 47.12%.
That is 47.12%. 0.12%. So
we stick with the 2, right?
Okay, so let's just stick with the 2 for the analysis we are going to start doing. So keep that in mind. So this is what we are looking at for the Eastern region. With the result that has come that far, 30 constituencies out of the 33 Eastern regional constituencies, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia leads with 493,000, representing 51.2%, while John Dramani Mahama is 453,000, representing 47.12%. So keeping this in mind, we are going to now look at historically what the performance of these 2 candidates has been in the Eastern region, and then we'll make a deduction as to what the final results and perhaps the gap we are expecting at the end of the day, as we already know that the vice president has conceded defeat to the former president. So I'm just quickly going to take you to my historical graph which is in here. And then, okay, so this is, we have from 2020 to 2016. So let me clean this. And then we go to the Eastern region. Okay, so this is what we have for the Eastern region, and it's going to load pretty shortly. We have 2020, 2016, 2012. If we scroll down to the total for the presidential, in 2020, candidate Nana Akufo-Addo polled 60.46% of the votes in the Eastern region. Now, if you want to take it in actual votes, that is 741,870 votes. However, John Mahama did 38.47%, which is 472,042 votes. Now, this is where it gets interesting. If you remember the figures we put down from John Dramani Mahama and Bawumia from this year, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is doing 472,000 IB, if I'm right. Yes. And John Dramani Mahama is doing 427,000 thereabout, if I'm equally right. Yeah. Now, with 3 constituencies left to go, what this could mean is that John Dramani Mahama could still end up with a figure of around 470,000, which means that between 2020 and 2024, John Dramani Mahama has simply solidified his votes. Yeah. So entering into the 2024 elections, he's basically giving a voter turnout similar to what he did in 2020. Yeah. However, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has seen his voter turnout drop in the Eastern region by nearly 250,000 votes. Yeah. So what this is happening and what is clear for you, if you look at, say, the Eastern region, and we'll do this and try and see for other regions to see if the trend continues, is that in the 2024 election, there might be conversations about voter turnouts. But when you strip down the data, you realize that candidate John Mahama is simply doing his performance or maintaining his performance as he did in 2020, while candidate Mahama is unable to pull the numbers that his boss, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, is pulling. So yes, this is for the region.
And now you mean candidate Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. In percentage terms, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia in the Eastern region has lost 9%
exactly
of the vote.
Exactly. And then John Dramani Mahama has gained 9%. Yes. But it's important to note that when you are looking at the loss and the gains, we look at it also in the value. Because if you say Mahama has gained 9%, one may be tempted to think that Mahama's vote has surged by that 9%. But that 9% is because Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's vote has so much reduced that the overall voter turnout of the Eastern region has equally fallen. Yeah. So Mahama maintaining his votes from 2020 pushes himself up to 47%. So that's the first region we'll look at. Now, if you also look at historically, and that is why I'm giving you 3 election cycles, 2020, 2016 in the middle, and 2012. If you come back to 2012, candidate Akufo-Addo performed 56.91% in 2012. And guess what? The NPP lost that election to the NDC. So if the candidates in 2024 is even performing worse in what is considered a stronghold of the party, he's performing worse than the 2012 performance, then that could tell you that you are looking for a very big gap, and it was actually going to be a long day. For which reason, it shouldn't be surprising that the vice president conceded so early into the contest. So, Ibrahim, we are done with the Eastern region. Which other region do we have on our team?
Let's go to OT.
Okay.
Let's go to OT region. And so for the OT region, of course, which is a stronghold for the NDC, the certified final presidential results is in. Yeah. And you have the presidential candidate for the NPP, DMB, doing a little over 56,000. And so, yes, that's for OT. And then you have John Dramani Mahama doing 584,000. So
Okay, so hold on for me. So
DMB is doing 56,699.
699. And
Yes.
then
And
JDM,
then JDM is doing 584,000.
584,000.
234.
234.
Yes.
So,
percentage terms, I think they've not done the percentage here per the summary of the results that I have. No percentage. Yes.
Okay.
But let's do nominal figures.
okay, so let's start from this. So, just like we did for Eastern Region, look at these figures. When you pick them, go to your historical data and equally look at those figures. So we have 2020 on the left, 2016 in the middle, and 2012 on the right. Now we're going. This is a region that has been predominantly green.
Yes.
So it is already an NDC stronghold. Has the seat gotten stronger or has the region gotten stronger in this year's election? Let's find out. So we move down to our data sets. Pardon me. Okay. So we move to our data set. Okay. And for 2020, we unveil the data. And it's very interesting. Candidate Mahama in 2020 gathered 181,021 votes. And candidate Akufo-Addo did 102,858 votes. Remember, from what the EC just released, candidate Bawumia is doing just around 56,000.
Yes.
Which shows that the results of the NPP in that region, or the turnout or vote for the NPP in that region, have. Yes. And interestingly, that vote has been transferred to the NDC candidates. So unlike the Eastern region, where although the votes from the NPP fell by close to 250,000 and candidate Mahama was not gaining, in the Oti region, what you see is that there is more of a voter transfer. So the votes are moving right from the NPP and moving to the NDC. What this tells you is that Oti region is being strengthened as a stronghold of the NDC. Because if the voters just sat at home, one could therefore say that it was probably party faithfuls who were disappointed and decided not to go. But in the Oti region, it could mean two things. One, floating voters who for some reason say that this year we think the candidate Mahama is a better candidate and we are going for him. Or people who genuinely now want to associate themselves with the National Democratic Congress. So that is it for the Oti region. Now, if you look at it historically, and we move back to 2016 and 2012, in fact, it has always been a very stronghold for the NDC. And the best performance of the NPP in that region was actually in 2020. So whatever the NPP was doing in 2020, that gave them that vote. It's important to go back and look at it. But then I'll give you one key before I leave on the Oti region. This year in the Oti region, there was a constituency called Sao. In 2020, they voted in the presidential, but were denied a parliamentary candidate for 4 whole years. Well, I'll go through the parliamentary results for you shortly, but I can tell you that 20,000 people in Sao decided that the NPP is the party, the NDC is the party they want to associate themselves with. If last or in the 4 years ago, they probably not vote for the party, clearly, this is something that could have pushed the party up. So this is another interesting dynamics with the Oti region. With the Oti region done, we can probably move to another region. Ibrahim.
Central. Let's do Central region. One of the swingers of regions on the political calendar. So the Central region is the region we're doing next. 2020, that region presidentially voted NPP, and parliamentary went to NDC. But of course, I'm sure we'll touch on the parliamentary fallouts later. So presidential, central region.
Okay.
DMB.
DMB.
Yes.
What's
DMB had 382,000.
Hold on. I think we are talking about the MPP because Dr. Mahmoud Baumia. Okay, we are talking about today. Okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about central region.
Yeah, so central region as at
yes.
this result. Okay, thank
yes,
you.
Today.
Yes, please.
382,000.
382,000. Yeah.
749.
749.
Yes.
Okay.
And then John Dramani Mahama.
And JDM.
562,000.
562.
620.
620.
Yes.
So this is the number we are looking at for the central region. Now, we just have to move up our data set and see the numbers that we get for the central region here. Okay. So, in 2020, John Mahama polled 524,038 votes in the central region. And candidate Akufo-Addo gathered 602,111 votes in the central region. If you look at the data we have here, the NDC's vote has gone up by just under 40,000, but the MPP's votes have fallen by 220,000. This gives you a similar picture to what we had in the Eastern region. John Dramani Mahama, basically by consolidating his gains and votes he had in 2020, turned the central region around because close to 200,000 people who voted for the NPP in 2020 decided not to do so in yesterday's elections. Now, Ibrahim, earlier you were making a very interesting situation of the central region and the role of Kennedy Ohene Ejapon.
Yes.
When we also move to the parliamentary, we'll also touch on his constituency. But I'm sure you know already that the Ascent Central seat is now occupied by the NDC. And when you go deeper into the numbers, the issue of apathy also contributed or played a role in that. So Central Region, as Andy said, feels that a personality like Kennedy Ejapon is strong, and as a result of probably how they feel he probably should be the future of the party, decided to sit at home. So 250,000 votes from the NPP that they had in 2020, not in their bracket today, and this is what we have in here. Ibrahim, I don't know whether you have anything to add to the central region.
Yes, for central region, yes, I agree. Apathy was quite high, and the apathy affected the NPP. So many people who voted for the NPP decided to stay home without voting at this time around. Of course, as you mentioned, there are others, however, who decided to show up, then voted for John Dramani Mahama. So since 2020, for the first time, the parliamentary elections in the central region, green, and then the presidential, green. And of course, subsequently, you will then say that if you link this to Greater Accra, that we have returned to default setting, where wherever the central region and the Greater Accra look towards presidentially, that individual becomes a president. And so that permutation that was undone in 2020 has returned to default setting.
Certainly so. Certainly so.
We can go to Western North.
Okay, so we have Western North collated results.
Yes, we have that one here.
Okay.
Western North.
Because I know there's 6 from the EC.
Okay, so
from the EC we have the Ahafo region.
Yes.
We have the Oti region. We have the Central region, and then we have the Eastern region. And you say the last one is the Western North.
Yes, the Western North.
So let's get the Western North.
Yes.
So kindly give me the figures for the Western North.
Okay, so the Western North figures are here. If you go to DMB, that's 124,024.
Hold on for me.
All right, so DMB.
So DNB
did 124,024. 124,000.
124,024. 024.
Yes.
Okay.
And JDM. Yes, so JDM did 202,689. 689.
Okay. So just like we did for the other 2 times, we picked the data, we don't really look at the percentages,
Yeah.
and we strip the nominal figures to see the movements in the last 4 years with regards to the election. So our historical data, a second. So our historical data, when we move to 2020, will tell us that candidate Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo. In fact, this is one seat that the NDC or John Dramani Mahama equally won in 2020. This is one seat that John Dramani Mahama, or one constituency that John Dramani Mahama equally won in 2020. Now, in 2020, he polled 192,460 of the vote cast in the Western North region, while candidate Akufo-Addo did 161,560. Now, if we do the comparison now, we see that John Dramani Mahama's votes have just gone up by 10,000, from 192,000 to 202,689. However, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's votes, or the MPP's votes, have fallen from the 161,560 recorded in 2020 to 124,024 in this year. So a similar picture is being painted. Yeah. And I keep saying it, that when you keep looking at the data, what you keep seeing is that all the candidates John Dramani Mahama has done this year is to consolidate his votes from 2020. He's not outperforming it so much, with the exception of the OT region where there was a significant shift. All the others, he moves in just about 10,000 or 20,000, which is relatively a smaller portion of about 5% of his votes from 2020. But then what we see on the reverse is that the MPP's votes keeps falling. So John Mahama can rise with a minimum of 5%, but Dr. Bawumia's votes fall by as much as 20% per region. So this is what we see in here. 192 in 2020 for John Mahama to 202,000, and the NPP fell from 161,000 to 124,000 in this year's election. Ibrahim, I don't know whether you have something to add in regards to the Western North
region. I'm sure
region.
with time, in stripping down the numbers, we'll look at the factors as well, as whether it's got something to do with just the candidate or it's got something to do with the party or the performance of government in its entirety. But that will be for subsequent discussion. So let's go to Ahafo.
Okay.
Ahafo, yes. Ahafo will be the final one we'll be looking at.
Okay, so
yes.
Ahafo, let me go get my... So kindly,
so
you have your figures?
Yes, I do have my figures.
Okay.
And Ahafo used to be one region called Bono Ahafo.
Yep.
But now it's been split. So Ahafo, DMB polled 113,851. That's 100.
Kindly take it again.
113,000.
Yes.
851.
851. And JDM?
JDM 130,106. 130,106. Yes.
Right from the onset, if you look at the map you have on your board, this should be surprising to you, because the Ahafo has looked pretty much blue. So when you see blue, that is for the MPP. When you see green, that is for the NDC. If you look at the far right, which is the 2012 election, you see that it's been kind of split when it comes to the blue and green. In 2016, the blue got deeper. And in 2020, that blue equally was maintained. But now, watch what has happened. If we compare this and we go up to historical performance, what you will see is that for the first time since the creation of the Ahafo region, or when you decide to strip Ahafo down, the NDC candidate has won the Ahafo region. Then we delve into the numbers further. In 2020, candidate Akufo-Addo did 145,025 votes in the Ahafo region. And John Dramani Mahama did 116,371 in the Ahafo region. John Dramani Mahama has moved from 116,000 to 130,000, a jump of 14,000. And guess what? Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has reduced so much so that he's underperforming the votes that John Dramani Mahama had even in 2020. The Hafo region therefore provides a very dicey picture because a jump from 116 to 130 is close to a 10 percentage point appreciation, which could mean that probably the region could be tilting a bit to John Dramani Mahama. But once again, the story for Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia remains the same throughout. 145,000 to 113,000 is a drop of close to 32,000 votes. 32,000 votes out of close to 150,000 votes is a drop of 20%. And as I said, when you look at the trend, we look at the data across the regions, what is becoming clear is that Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is underperforming his boss's 2020 elections numbers by close to 20% and sometimes over. So very interesting analysis from the Hafo region over here.
And
Ibrahim.
Edem, yes, you've established a trend, and that has been the trend. In fact, after it's all said and done, you realize that with the exception of probably one or two regions, this is a trend that will run through from Greater Accra to Western, to Central, to Eastern, to Ashanti. Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia will be underperforming his boss.
Fantastic that you say this. So now that we've touched on the regions that have their collated sheets out, on our graph that we're using here, we are able to just pick the results that have come through regions and gives you a picture of what is happening there. You mentioned Ashanti region, so I'll quickly go to the Ashanti region, which is very blue here, showing that it is still an MPP strong seat. But what are the numbers telling us? Now, in 2020, candidate Akufo-Addo had an average performance in the Ashanti, or overall performance in the Ashanti region, of close to 73%. When I open this Ashanti region, and this is supposed to give me a summary of the results that have come through our collation internally from the Ashanti region, it's supposed to give, okay, so there it is. A second, please. Okay, so there you have it. From 73%, with the result we've gathered so far, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is performing at 68% in the Ashanti region. And John Dramani Mahama is performing at about 29 to 30%. Now remember, heading into the elections, the NPP had set an ambitious target that if they want to win this election, they would have to do over 75% in the Ashanti region. In fact, historically, the highest the NPP have ever done in the Ashanti region is the 77% of candidate Kufuor in 2004. Yeah. Apart from that, candidate Akufo-Addo did 76% in 2016. The very election that gave us what would have been the largest election margin.
Let's continue with crunching the numbers. Edem Kodjo is still standing by. Yeah. Edem, what more do you have for us?
Okay, so before we went, we were talking about the Ashanti region. And whilst we went, because our system is proof, we had a refresh and the figures have updated. Right. And we see John Dramani Mahama still leading appreciably. So currently we have 2.63 million votes for John Dramani Mahama from our collated results and 1.7. So as we speak, John Dramani Mahama per our result already has a resounding 900,000 gap. And we still have some number of constituencies, rather a large number of constituencies to go. So as I did the first time, we're talking about the Ashanti region. So we're going to open the Ashanti region. And this is what we are seeing in here. That Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is currently performing at 68.57%. Now, if you're going to compare that to his boss in 2000, his boss did just a little above 70%. I would want to get that figure exactly for you. So in 2020, candidate Akufo-Addo did 72.75% in the Ashanti region. Now, because we don't have all the results here, we probably will not be able to do the projection. But if you look at this, John Dramani Mahama, or candidate Akufo-Addo, in 2020 had a total vote of 1.795 million. We can put it at approximately 1.8 million votes from the Ashanti region. John Dramani Mahama just had a little of 653,000. So there was a gap of close to 1.1 million votes. Now, this is what the trend is telling us. John Dramani Mahama is really not outperforming his numbers. So at the end of the day, you and I should not be surprised that John Dramani Mahama still hovers around this figure of 653,000 and probably does not even hit the 700,000 mark when the Ashanti region results are fully collated. However, we are likely to see Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia drop from the 1.79 that candidate Akufo-Addo did to somewhere probably around 1.4 or 1.5 million. And that is where everyone will tell you the election is actually lost. Because per their projections, they were hoping to make in excess of 75% in order to ensure that they either push the race into a runoff or win one touch in the camp of the NPP. The NDC, on the other hand, said they were targeting 29% to 30%. But the trend is telling you that the NDC is likely to hit their targets. And this will not be because more people in the Ashanti region are voting for the NDC. No. It is because a lot more NPP sympathizers, if we assume, are seated home, thereby increasing the proportion of the NDC votes based on those that have come out. So that is a very interesting picture from the Ashanti region. I want to take you through some other regions briefly, and then we delve into some parliamentary results that are trickling in, and then also look at trend analysis over there. So the map is still failing. There's an interesting one. Okay, so since we have spent time on the stronghold of the NPP, which is the Ashanti region, I think it is best we go to the World Bank of the NDC, the Volta region. On the far right, very green. How deep is this green? Let's find out. So in 2020, I don't know whether I will remember the figures of head, but for some time now, the NPP had actually been appreciating quite significantly in the Volta region.
Yes.
In fact, I've heard people who made commentary that the NPP felt or were targeting hitting close to 18% to 20% in the Volta region this year.
Because the party did 14% in the last elections.
Fantastic. And they felt that they had done a lot. They had the Hoi seats, and they said as a result of that seat, a lot of development was going on around that area. But I'm here to tell you that anyone who has such dreams as at this time should probably wake up from slumber. It is not possible. No pun intended. So, from the results we've gathered that far, from the Volta region, and I can tell you this on authority because the Volta region is one of the regions that we've had close to all the results coming through. The NDC currently is performing at 89%. John Dramani Mahama is approaching 90% of vote cast in the Volta region. This is to tell you that 9 in every 10 people you meet in the Volta region who participated in yesterday's December 7 poll voted for the NDC. And that decimates every plan of the NPP in whatever modeling they did entering into the election to guarantee that they break the 8. So this is what we have so far. 469,986 for John Dramani Mahama and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia at a paltry 49,180. The final figures we're expecting from Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is somewhere a little above 50,000. And John Dramani Mahama would also do in excess of about 500,000. But the voter regions numbers are also very interesting. And I would want to explain to you why. So in 2020, let's see the performance. In 2020. In 2020, in the voter region, the NPP, okay, John Dramani Mahama did 603,398. And candidate Kufuor did 100,000. That was what pushed him to 14%. Now, on an average, we have said Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is underperforming by about 20%. So one person will therefore do a 20% analysis and say, then probably, based on the trend we have seen, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia should be hovering around 75 to 80,000. Well, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's votes, just like in the Uti region, if you remember, when we did the analysis from the Uti region, the MPP's votes in the Uti region has basically been halved from 2020 to today. A similar trend is going to happen in the voter region. So from 100,000 in 2020, the NPP this year in the voter region, per the projections we are getting, will just be hovering around 53,000 votes. However, the strange thing in all of this is that John Dramani Mahama may probably not reach the 603,000 votes he garnered in 2020. He's going to most likely do in excess of 500,000, but wouldn't, or probably, or most likely, won't reach the 600,000 mark. It brings an interesting picture of whether there was equally a low voter turnout in the voter region. Or some would say the last-minute measures, announcement of closure of borders among others, and that is an assumption, could have equally played in a decreased numbers in that region. But irrespective of what John Dramani Mahama's numbers are, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia's votes being halved effectively means that whatever loss John Dramani Mahama would make in the voter region would actually have no effects in his final results. Reason, despite reducing his votes, he's able to jump from 84.59% to close to 90% for the voter region. Ibrahim,
yes.
We've touched on Ashanti, we've touched on voter.
We've touched on
two very interesting, focusing on
our
projections based on the results we are getting. I don't know if you have anything to say.
Yes, and one thing is very clear, the low voter turnout. And somebody asked me that question. In fact, Natalie asked me, no Natalie, Bernice asked me that question yesterday, and that who do I think a low voter turnout will favor, the incumbent or the opposition? Well, there we have it. Our answer is what we have just established, the trend that whenever there is apathy, and that apathy is linked directly to the incumbent, as many reports did, the Afrobarometer survey, and then also Global Info Analytics, saying that 6% of voters who voted for MPP in 2020, when they were asked again, they said they were not going to vote, right? And so, like I said earlier, it's not that the party didn't take these reports seriously. The party did. And it did the best it could. It developed some unconventional ways of doing things, because breaking the 8 would definitely require something more than just your conventional way of campaigning. And for the first time, you saw the former president mount campaign platform, speak directly to the region. But just that, there were many people who had their minds made up that regardless, they were not going to vote, right? And it runs through. And I agree that eventually, after it's all said and done, you realize that even in the voter region, there was apathy. Just that the apathy levels are not enough to affect the NDC. And that's what happened. And interestingly, we talked about the Eastern region. Let me give you this figure, specifically from the capital of the Eastern region, Koforidua, New Dublin South. And it's to make a point. Now, MPP is recording 29,830, the certified. 29,830 in the Eastern region, the capital, New Dublin South. Now, let me take you to Mohammed's figure. 26,261. These are figures you don't record. 29,000 in Eastern Region, the capital of the Eastern Region, Koforidua, and John Mahama is doing 26,000. Difference of just 3,000. That's a figure you expect to record in the reverse in the Yulu Krobo and Menya Krobo enclave. And it's a story that has been recurring with, from the figures that have been given you from the polling station results to the constituency results. The central part of the Eastern Region, equally showing up and voting for the NDC. That's a new development that the political watchers will have to take notice of.
Now, so I'm interested. So, with the results we have here, at that time we had not, although we are picking more results, we had not factored in the full 30%. But even when you open the Eastern region over here, the voter turnout, the voter percentage for candidates by Umia is just hovering around 54%. Now, the results we are getting from the collated sheet shows is doing 51%. What this is probably implying is that, for all you know, when more results come through, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia could equally be underperforming in some of his strongholds, because the Eastern region, like this, we've seen some figure. Additionally, because of the multi-dimensional nature of the Eastern region, so you know there's the Eastern region part that is closer to the Ashanti region, and there's the other part that is closer to the Volta region. A balance in votes would give you that certainty you need. But to be doing 54%, even based on the number of constituencies we have, when the West, his former boss, did in 2012 was 56%, it's already a sign that this race is already over long before we even get the total results in there. So having done Eastern, having done Volta, having done Ashanti, I want to bring you to the capital. And the results we are getting from the capital, I can't remember or recall, since I started reading through data, seeing such figures in Accra. Now, the Greater Accra region, despite being one of the smallest on the map, is the most populous, with 3.7 million people. Now, interestingly in Accra, what we are also observing in Accra is that, just like all over the country, the issue of apathy is happening. But just like elsewhere, the apathy is affecting only one side. So let's look at the data. In 2020, John Dramani Mahama won Accra with a gap of just 70,000 votes or less. In fact, if you look at the figures, I don't think he made up to 52% of the votes in Accra. And heading into this election, the conversation was, if Ashanti region did turn up for the NPP, what was installed in Accra? The NPP had said and done analysis, which I had seen, that if they were able to do 45% in Accra, considering how angry people were in Accra, they would be in business. Some polls had suggested that the NPP was going to do as little as 40% in Accra, and people thought and felt that it was an exaggeration. The figures we are seeing show that the NPP's figures from all sides are overly exaggerated. So I'm just going to take you through the results we have in Accra, and then I give you the shocker.